Son, the future of this empire rests on your shoulders. Father, I just want to live a lazy, peaceful life. How did I end up with a good-for-nothing son like you? Doesn't that just make you a good-for-nothing emperor? I am the crown prince, but my ultimate dream is to be nothing more than a loafer, spending every day doing nothing but eating, drinking, and sleeping, and finally, retiring without a hitch. My father, the majestic ruler of all under heaven, terrified that I wouldn't be able to preserve the imperial bloodline, found me a crown princess. I'm finding you a sensible wife. Stop making a mess of things for me. Liu Shuyi, a woman who seemed even more of a loafer than I am. She spent every day either reading or balancing ledgers. She rarely spoke a word. The court officials and the entire inner palace all thought she was a pushover. Everyone wanted a piece of her and intended to take me, the crown prince, down with her. I thought the same thing at first. I spent my days pondering my survival as a loafer. If the Eastern Palace were ever breached, would it be faster to kneel or to run away? Until that day, I watched her use just 3 sentences to force the troublemaking imperial uncle to slap his own face, and he even bowed to Liu Shuyi in gratitude before he dared to leave. From that moment on, I realized my father's arrangements went far beyond just finding me a wife. He didn't just find me a spouse. He had actually married me off to a demon. My name is Li Cheng'an, the current crown prince. Who wouldn't feel a sense of awe hearing that title? In reality, I'm just a walking target. My biggest job every day is simply to stay alive, to survive better. I chose to just lie flat. Don't talk to me about the country or the empire. My empire is the Eastern Palace. My world begins and ends within these palace walls. And the common people? My people are just Chef Wang who cooks my meals. My father, the majestic ruler, has basically given up on saving me. He chose a crown princess for me. Her name is Liu Shuyi. The Liu family is a clan of scholars. They hold no military power and offer no protection. Liu Shuyi is quite beautiful. When people praise her, she just nods faintly, without much expression at all. She is a woman of few words. Our conversations are strictly minimalist. Throughout the day, it is mostly time to eat, time to sleep. Most of the time, she stays in the study reading or working the abacus. She keeps the ledgers for the Eastern Palace. She keeps them better than those old men at the Ministry of Revenue. This afternoon, I was soaking up the sun in the courtyard, mulling over whether to have the 8-treasure duck or beggar's chicken for dinner. Forget it, I'll have both. Nanny Zhang, who serves my mother, Empress Guo, arrived with 2 young eunuchs, leading the 2 young eunuchs, and stormed into the courtyard aggressively. She came right up to me. "Greetings, your highness." She gave a bow with a forced smile, but her eyes were sharp as blades, darting toward the room behind me. I couldn't even be bothered to lift my eyelids. I asked Nanny Zhang, "Is there something the matter?" An important item was stolen from the Empress's palace. A kingfisher feather hairpiece with a golden phoenix head. It was a tribute from the western regions. Someone saw Shunhei, the new maid here in the Eastern Palace, steal it away. My heart sank. Shunhei is a girl from Shuyi's family home. Shunhei is the maid Liu Shuyi brought from her family. She is completely honest. She blushes even just seeing me. Even a dog wouldn't believe she'd steal anything. It is clear this is aimed right at the crown princess Liu Shuyi. My mother is of the Guo clan. The Guos wanted to plant their own daughter in the Eastern Palace as a secondary consort. My father didn't agree. My mother has been unhappy ever since. This time she wants to use a maid to make an example, to take the opportunity to rebuke Liu Shuyi. I was just about to step in and smooth things over by suggesting we look into it further and not to falsely accuse anyone. Liu Shuyi emerged from the shop, holding an account book in her hands. She was wearing a simple, pale pink gown, looking remarkably fragile. As the sunlight hit her, she looked as delicate as a paper cutout. It is not that I wish to be a nuisance, but this is a matter of great importance. I must ask you, my lady, to hand over Chun-He, so she may be taken to the Empress for questioning. If she goes, Chun-He will never come back alive. Just as I was about to stand up, Liu Shuyi gave me a look. Her eyes were calm, like the surface of a lake, without a single ripple. Yet, I found myself inexplicably calmed and sat back down. Go. She walked up to Nanny Zhang, but did not look at her. Instead, she looked at a young eunuch behind her who was dodging her gaze. You say you saw her? She asked the young eunuch softly. The young eunuch trembled. Yes. I saw with my own eyes that Chun-He snuck away from the dressing table, clutching that gold-inlaid phoenix hairpin. Liu Shuyi nodded. She turned to ask Nanny Zhang. Nanny, at what time did the Empress discover the phoenix hairpin was missing? It was at 1:15 in the afternoon. Liu Shuyi replied with an "oh," her tone flat and devoid of emotion. She turned back and asked Chun-He, who was following behind her, in a low voice. Chun-He, 1:03. What were you doing at that time? Chun-He turned pale with fright and replied hurriedly with a sob, my lady. I was in the small kitchen making osmanthus cakes for you. Lies. You were clearly at the Empress's palace. How could you be making osmanthus cakes? Nanny Zhang looked triumphant, wearing the expression of someone who had caught the thief red-handed. I can hardly sit still. With no witnesses left, how is this to be settled? Liu Shuyi remained as calm and composed as ever. Nanny Zhang, how was the osmanthus cake today? Nanny Zhang was stunned. Clearly, she hadn't expected such a question. What osmanthus cake? The osmanthus cake served as an afternoon snack in the Empress's palace. Liu Shuyi said indifferently. Her tone remained devoid of emotion. Nanny Zhang's expression stiffened slightly. She forced herself to remain calm and replied, the Empress's snacks are naturally of the finest quality. Liu Shuyi smiled. This was the first time I had seen her smile. That is strange. Today, the East Palace kitchen received fresh golden osmanthus from Jiangnian. I thought it was a novelty, so I had Chun-He try making osmanthus cakes. The first batch made, I had her deliver to the Empress. It was delivered at 2:15 in the afternoon. Golden osmanthus has a distinct quality. It is incredibly fragrant, but difficult to clean. Once in your hands, water cannot wash it off for at least an hour. Since you claim you saw Chun-He steal the hairpin with your own eyes, you must have been very close to her. She lifted Chun-He's hand, revealing faint yellowish osmanthus petals. On that girl's hands were still traces of faint yellowish osmanthus debris. Come here. Smell what is on Chun-He's hands. The young eunuch's face went pale instantly. Nanny Zhang's expression changed as well. Liu Shuyi ignored them both. The osmanthus cakes from the imperial kitchen are made with dried aged osmanthus flowers, while mine were made with the fresh golden osmanthus that just arrived. The fragrance of the two is worlds apart. She turned toward Nanny Zhang, her voice remaining soft and gentle. Nanny, you serve in the Middle Palace. Surely one sniff is all you need to distinguish it. The osmanthus cake the Empress ate, was it made with aged or fresh osmanthus? If Her Majesty ate the fresh osmanthus, Chun-He arrived at the Central Palace at 1:15 p.m. But you claimed the phoenix hairpin was stolen at 19:45 p.m. That is a gap of 30 minutes. Chun-He would have already returned to the Eastern Palace by then. How could she have found the time to steal a hairpin? If you claim she lingered for 30 minutes to steal it, then as a maid of the Eastern Palace, how could she have moved through the Central Palace unhindered? And how did she find her way to the vanity? If the Empress was not eating fresh osmanthus, then it proves I never sent Chun-He to deliver any. In that case, the claim made by this little eunuch is nothing more than a ghost story. She finished speaking, her pace neither fast nor slow, as if she were discussing a trivial matter that had nothing to do with her. The entire courtyard fell into a deathly silence. Cold sweat began to bead on Matron Zhang's forehead. The little eunuch flopped to his knees on the ground. Please, Your Highness, the Crown Princess, spare me. It was my eyes playing tricks on me. I didn't see clearly. I didn't see who it was at all. Liu Shuyi didn't even glance at the cowering eunuch. She kept her gaze fixed solely on Matron Zhang. Do you still believe Chun-He needs to be taken to the Central Palace for questioning? Matron Zhang's face turned from red to white, looking exceptionally wretched. Finally, she forced out a smile that was uglier than crying. It was this old servant who was confused. It was all just a misunderstanding. Your Highness is magnanimous. Please don't hold it against this servant. With that, she shot a fierce glare at the little eunuch, and they practically fled in panic. After Matron Zhang and her retinue had left, the courtyard returned to quiet. Chun-He let out a wail. Kneeling at Shuyi's feet, Liu Shuyi reached out to help her up, handing her a handkerchief, and spoke only 2 words to her softly. Go on. Then she turned away, picking up the half-finished ledger on the stone table, as if nothing had happened at all. I have to get back to the shop. I sat in my chair, my jaw hanging open for a long time. She resolved the whole issue just like that. No shouting or screaming. No heated, logical arguments. She didn't even say a single harsh word. She remained calm the entire time. She dismissed the Empress's confidante with just a plate of osmanthus cakes, leaving the woman humiliated, sending her scurrying away in a panic. As she walked past me, I caught a faint scent of ink. I couldn't help but speak up, calling out softly, Shuyi. She paused, turned back around, and looked at me quietly. Are you really planning on letting it go this easily? I felt a sense of injustice in my heart. This was aimed directly at her. She looked at me, and for the first time her eyes revealed an emotion. It was a look of helplessness, like she was watching a fool. What else would I do? She raised her eyebrows slightly and asked me quietly, should I try to reason with a dog that wants to bite? Just hurt it enough, so it learns that biting costs you your teeth. that's enough." After saying this, she didn't linger, turning and walking straight into the shop. I sat where I was, watching the courtyard flagstones heated by the sun, and suddenly, what to have for dinner didn't seem to matter anymore. The previous incident with the osmanthus cakes caused a small ripple in the Empress's residence, but it wasn't a major affair, and it quickly settled down. My mother sent over some gifts, intended as a gesture of appeasement. Liu Shuyi accepted them all, and immediately had them logged into the inventory, without even batting an eyelash. I knew in my heart that this matter was far from over. My uncle, the Empress's brother, Guo Zhao, is a quintessential debauched noble. He acts like a tyrant, relying on his sister's position as Empress. He's long been used to that. He has held a grudge ever since his daughter failed to enter the Eastern Palace. Sure enough, a few days later, Guo Zhao came looking for trouble. That day was a day off, and for once, I was at leisure. I was busy learning how to cook a dish from Chef Wang. I had just cracked an egg into the pan when a servant came running in, panicked. "Your Highness, it is bad. The Emperor's brother-in-law is here, and he is demanding an explanation. He says he is here to confront the Crown Princess, and his tone is very aggressive." My heart sank instantly, knowing things were about to go south. This uncle of mine is a master at making a scene. Someone as reasonable as Liu Shuyi would surely suffer against him. I quickly wiped the grease off my hands and rushed to the main hall. Even before I reached the entrance, I could hear Guo Zhao shouting, "Crown Princess, you must give me an explanation today. Otherwise, I will report you to His Majesty for punishment. Charge you with failing to keep your subordinates in check, and let the Emperor hold you accountable." He stood there with his beer belly, pointing a finger at Liu Shuyi, spitting as he spoke, hurling the most vile insults. Yet, Liu Shuyi sat calmly in the main seat, holding her tea, slowly blowing the steam away from the rim. Her expression was indifferent. She didn't even twitch an eyebrow, as if none of this concerned her, as if Guo Zhao wasn't cursing at her. But at the stone lion by the door, I braced myself and walked in, trying to mediate the situation. Why all the anger? What is worth getting so worked up about? Crown Prince, you've come at just the right time. You need to get her under control. Your Crown Princess is indulging her servants. She has no respect for the Empress. She's completely lawless and ignores the Empress entirely. My head began to throb. I truly didn't know what to do in the face of his behavior. I could only manage a strained smile and try to persuade him with gentle words. "Uncle, please calm your anger. Let's talk this over rationally. There is no need to damage our relationship. Shuyi is not that kind of person. She would never indulge the servants. I don't care what kind of person she is. Today you will either hand over Shunhei so I can take her away and deal with her, or she will go personally to Kowtow and apologize to the Empress." That remark was truly excessive. It showed no regard for the dignity of the Eastern Palace. The Crown Princess paying respects to the Empress is a matter of decorum, but being forced to kowtow is humiliating. That would be an utter disgrace. She absolutely must not bow her head so easily. My expression hardened as well. "Uncle, the previous matter has already been investigated. It was simply a misunderstanding. I don't care. I only know that my sister has been wronged, and she is unhappy. My sister is the Empress, and she must never suffer such treatment." His words left me speechless. I was struck dumb for a moment. Just then, Liu Shuyi, who hadn't said a word, stirred. She gently set down the cup of tea she was holding. She slowly raised her eyes, her gaze resting calmly on Guo Zhao. "Lord State Uncle, have you finished?" With that simple sentence, Guo Zhao was stunned by her stare. "Now that you're done, it is my turn to speak." Liu Shuyi stood up and walked slowly until she was in front of Guo Zhao. "First, Shunhei is my servant, and it is only natural that I am the one to discipline her, setting aside the fact that she did nothing wrong, even if she were truly at fault. It is not for you, Lord State Uncle, to come to the Eastern Palace to deal with it. Such is the rule of the Eastern Palace. So I can take her away and deal with her, or she will go personally to Kowtow and apologize to the Empress." These words are truly excessive. They show no regard for the dignity of the Eastern Palace. For the Crown Princess to pay respects to the Empress is a matter of etiquette, but to Kowtow is humiliating. That would be a supreme disgrace. I must never bow my head so easily. My expression hardened. The matter from last time has already been investigated. It was simply a misunderstanding. I don't care. I only know that my sister has been wronged, and she is deeply unhappy. My sister is the Empress. She must never endure such treatment. I was left speechless, choked by his words, at a loss for a reply. Just then, Liu Shuyi, who had remained silent, stirred. She gently set down the cup of tea she had been holding. She slowly lifted her eyes and looked at Guo Zhao with a calm gaze. "Lord Uncle, have you finished?" With just that simple sentence, Guo Zhao was stunned by her look. "Now that you are finished, it is my turn to speak." Liu Shuyi stood up and slowly walked over to Guo Zhao. "First, Shunhei is my person, and naturally it is my place to discipline her. Not to mention she has done nothing wrong. Even if she had truly made a mistake, it is not for you, Lord Uncle, to come to the Eastern Palace to punish her. This is the protocol of the Eastern Palace, and it is the dignity of the imperial family. Guo Zhao opened his mouth to retort, but was silenced by her gaze. Second, Lord Uncle, you keep insisting that the Empress has been wronged. May I ask in what way? Have I cut the supplies for the Central Palace, or did I fail to show proper courtesy when greeting Her Majesty? She paused, a trace of coldness entering her voice. Or perhaps, Lord Uncle, you believe the Empress's dignity is maintained by framing a servant girl and suppressing the crown princess. These words were piercing, striking directly at Guo Zhao's heart. Guo Zhao's face instantly flushed a sickening liver red. You're just slandering me. Whether I am slandering you, Lord Uncle, you know that in your heart. Are you here at the Eastern Palace today to seek justice for the Empress, or to intimidate me because your daughter wasn't made a secondary consort? You know the answer to that better than anyone. Guo Zhao was completely panicked. If this gets out, it will be seen as interference by the imperial kin. I did no such thing. Don't talk nonsense. I heard that your silk shops, Lord Uncle, received a shipment of tribute cloud brocade from the south last month, which never made it into the Imperial Household Department's accounts, but went straight into your private coffers. This brocade was meant for the palace's autumn garments. Now that the autumn chill is setting in, the Imperial Household Department is in a panic over the missing material. Guo Zhao's eyes widened sharply. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. This was done in such secrecy. How could she know so much? I'm a bit stunned too. The crown princess actually knows about this too, Lord Uncle. Tell me, if I were to place your silk shop ledgers alongside the Eastern Palace's expenditure records and present them for His Majesty to see, would His Majesty punish me first? Would he punish me for poor management first? Or would he first thoroughly investigate who is secretly undermining the imperial family and taking advantage of the crown? Guo Zhao's lips trembled. He couldn't say a single word. Embezzling tribute is a grave crime, a capital offense punishable by death. Liu Shuyi looked at him, suddenly flashing a mocking, hollow smile. However, Lord Uncle, you were only thinking of the Empress, driven by your profound filial piety. I can certainly understand that in my heart. How about this? Let's just say today was simply me, the younger generation, being ignorant and unintentionally causing you displeasure, Lord Uncle. I offer you my apologies right here. Guo Zhao was stunned on the spot. He remained frozen there, his mind likely in complete disarray. A moment ago he had a blade at his throat. The next, she offered him an exit to save face. If he refused to let it go now, he would be truly ungrateful. In a flash, he instantly grasped the crux of the situation, and then he did something that left me stunned. He raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face with a loud crack. Look at this foul mouth of mine. It was all a misunderstanding, a complete misunderstanding. Another crisp sound of a slap echoed. The crown princess is virtuous and kind. It is I, old Guo, who is the scoundrel. It is I, old Guo, who was muddled and believed the slander of villains. Your Highness, you have a vast and generous heart. Please, do not hold this against me. After saying this, he clutched his rapidly swelling face and backed away, bowing and scraping before us. He retreated faster than a rabbit. The hall was left with only Liu Shuyi and me again. I looked at Liu Shuyi, feeling as if I were looking at a monster. She walked back to her seat as if nothing had happened, picked up her now cold tea, and took a light sip, as though nothing at all had occurred. How did you know about the cloud brocade? She set down her cup and gave me a calm look. Every month, the expenses and purchases of the East Palace pass through my hands. Last month, the Imperial Household Department's silk budget was 30% higher than usual, but the fabric delivered to the East Palace was 50% less. The quality was also poor. I had the accounting office look into it, and that is how I found out. She said it so nonchalantly, as if she were merely commenting on the weather. I, however, listened with a racing heart, feeling a cold sweat break out on my back. So, she wasn't just calculating the trivial expenses of the East Palace. She keeps the accounts of the entire Imperial Palace in her mind. Then you're just going to let him go so easily? If I don't let him go, should I really drag him before the Emperor to face judgment? Push him too far? He is a relative of the imperial family, the Empress's own brother. If a cornered dog does something desperate, it does us no good at all. She stood up and reached up to smooth out her sleeves. To beat a dog, you must use a stick to make it afraid and ensure it remembers the lesson, but you shouldn't beat it to death. A dead dog is of no use anyway. Only a living dog that fears the pain will give you a wide berth. I stood where I was, mulling over her words again and again. I suddenly felt that the political infighting and struggles for the throne I had worried about before were all far too trivial, hardly worth mentioning. With Liu Shuyi by my side, what need is there for political factions? She alone is worth an entire army. A terrifying army that can use an abacus as a weapon. The story of the uncle of the nation slapping himself 3 times soon spread throughout the palace. The versions were bizarre, with all sorts of different claims. Some said I heroically saved a beauty and publicly berated the uncle. Others said Liu Shuyi threatened to kill herself, showing a spirit truly fierce and unmatched. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard these stories. This crowd has quite the imagination. Not a single person guessed right. They could never imagine that Liu Shuyi was simply balancing the books with him. After this incident, life in the Eastern Palace became much quieter. My mother stopped looking for trouble as well. Even the concubines in the inner palace who wanted a show all backed down. I enjoyed the peace and quiet, living a very comfortable life. Every day I was either with Chef Wang studying new recipes, or lying in the courtyard watching ants move their homes. I once thought such good days would last a long time, but facts proved that I was being too simple and naive. The person who jumped out this time was Zhang Jianji, the Minister of Revenue. Zhang Jianji was a trusted subordinate of my second imperial brother. My second brother always prided himself on his literary and military talents. He believes himself to be the only candidate for the throne. Unfortunately, his mother is merely a common noble consort. That is why he has always viewed me as a thorn in his side. This Zhang Jianji is his spearhead in the field. It was another typical morning court session. I was standing at the front of the ranks, drifting in and out of sleep, listening to them bicker over the Yellow River flooding and the never-ending topics of the border wars. Suddenly, Zhang Jianji stepped out from the ranks of officials. Your Majesty, I have a petition to present. My father sat on the dragon throne and lazily lifted his eyelids. Speak, he said. I wish to impeach the Crown Princess. As the mistress of the Eastern Palace, Crown Princess Liu has been greedy and unrestrained, lining her own pockets and amassing wealth unscrupulously, causing the Eastern Palace's accounts to fall into the red, and even selling off precious artifacts from the palace. It is an utter disgrace to our great Qi royal family. Once these words were spoken, the entire court was in an uproar. I too was instantly jolted awake from my daze. Me, greedy for money. Why would I ever be short on silver? I may be lazy by nature, but I am not actually a fool. Every expenditure in the Eastern Palace is managed by Liu Shuyi like a fortress. Forget embezzling funds. If I take even a single tael of silver extra for tea, she records every detail in her ledger. My father's face darkened instantly. As he looked at me, I quickly stepped out from the ranks and knelt to pay my respects. Father, your son has something to say. Crown Prince remained calm. Your Majesty, this is the ledger I obtained from within the Eastern Palace. It clearly records how the Crown Princess invented various pretexts to secretly convert palace property into her private assets. I implore Your Majesty to investigate and uphold justice for the royal family. A eunuch nearby stepped forward to present the ledger. My father flipped through the ledger page by page. His expression grew grimmer as he read. My heart started pounding nervously. That ledger was crafted perfectly, extremely realistic. Every single item recorded, time, location, and person involved are all correct. It even tracks that last month I had Liu Shuyi approve 50 taels of silver to buy a beautiful parrot from the western regions. Li Cheng'an. What else do you have to say for yourself? What could I possibly say? If I claim the ledger is forged, who would believe me? My second imperial brother stood to the side, a faint smile playing on his lips. I was sweating profusely from anxiety, not knowing how to defend myself. Just then, a cold, clear voice drifted in from the hall entrance. Your subject, daughter-in-law Liu Shuyi, has words she wishes to convey to Your Majesty. Liu Shuyi was dressed in her formal crown princess ceremonial robes, walking in slowly and with complete composure. Though she held no official rank, she was technically not qualified to attend court. But at that moment, no one in the hall dared to step forward and stop her. She walked to the very center of the great hall, and toward my father on the dragon throne, she bowed low with grace, performing a standard court salutation. May Your Majesty be well. Her voice was soft, yet filled with perfect etiquette. Though her voice was not loud, it carried clearly throughout the Golden Hall. Crown Princess, are you aware of the crimes you have committed? May I ask Your Majesty, of what crime have I Chengshi actually been accused? You're facing death and still you dare to be stubborn. Crown Princess, the evidence of your embezzlement of imperial property is right before your eyes. Do you still intend to quibble here and deny it? Lord Zhang. You say this ledger was obtained from within the Eastern Palace? Exactly, it is because someone in the Eastern Palace finds your actions despicable that they were willing to risk death to secretly hand this evidence to me. Very well. Father, I Chengxi also have a ledger here. This is the total record of income and expenses for the Eastern Palace. From the moment it was established up until yesterday, every single item is clearly recorded. Please, Your Majesty, take a look. The eunuch at his side stepped forward, took the ledger, and presented it to my father. My father reached out and opened the ledger, his face filled with suspicion. After only a single glance, his expression shifted. His look of fury transformed into one of complete astonishment. Zhang Jianji also craned his neck to see, with a look of disdain on his face. At this stage of the game, what is the point of using a fake ledger to confuse the issue? Your Majesty, this ledger of mine. Every income entry has a reference number, which can be verified against the official Imperial Household Department slips. Every expenditure lists the item and the person who handled it, and is further verified by the personal seals of the merchant shops involved. From major repairs to the palace structures, down to every needle and thread, every single transaction has been recorded with perfect accuracy. Your Majesty may at any time summon officials from the Imperial Household Department and the Ministry of Revenue, as well as the shopkeepers in the capital who conduct business with the Eastern Palace, to audit the accounts right here in this hall. We can verify every single deposit and withdrawal. As for the ledger currently in Minister Zhang's hands, it did indeed originate from the Eastern Palace. The color drained from Zhang Jianji's face instantly. He looked utterly ghastly. The smile on my second imperial brother's face also froze in place. That ledger was prepared specifically for those who were looking to find it. Ever since I took charge of all the Eastern Palace accounts, there have always been pesky flies buzzing in my ears, which I find quite annoying. I was annoyed by them, and yet I didn't want to dirty my own hands. So I simply created a fake ledger full of holes. I intentionally left in several glaring flaws to make those with ulterior motives think it was easily investigated and that they had successfully obtained evidence against me. I just never expected that you, Minister Zhang, a dignified Minister of Revenue, would be unable to even distinguish between authentic and forged documents, yet dare to bring them before the imperial court. Minister Zhang, you have served in the Ministry of Revenue for many years. In the interest of thrift in our Eastern Palace, we use nothing but ordinary song-style ink for our daily accounts. The one in your hands, and this genuine ledger of mine, should have completely different sense. How dare you, Zhang Jianji? To have the audacity to forge a ledger and attempt to slander the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. Slandering the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. How do you plead? I know nothing of this, Your Majesty. I have been framed. He shouted at the top of his lungs, glancing nervously at my second imperial brother. My second brother had already lowered his head, nearly burying it in his chest, looking as if this had nothing to do with him. Drag him away. Throw him into the dungeon. Guard him strictly. Thoroughly investigate all his accomplices. Several fierce imperial guards rushed up immediately, dragging the limp and collapsed Zhang Jianji out of the hall. The great hall fell into an instant silence. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Liu Shuyi. She stood quietly in the center of the hall, as if she had just done something utterly trivial. I watched her cold, distant back, and suddenly felt a chill. This woman, she wasn't just staging a counterattack earlier. She was fishing, setting the trap, waiting for the fish to bite. I looked at my pale second brother and suddenly felt a sliver of sympathy for him. Cross me, and you'll get, at most, a lecture from my father. But cross my wife. If you try to scheme against her, well, brother, I can only wish you the best of luck. After Zhang Jianji was removed, my second brother kept his head down for a while. The political tides at court began to shift quietly. People used to think I was a pushover, but now, in their eyes, there was something else. I knew they didn't respect me from the heart. They were simply afraid of my Crown Princess Liu Shuyi. To tell the truth, even I, myself, felt a bit afraid of her. Ever since the incident with the fake ledger, whenever I look at Liu Shuyi, I don't see someone pondering romance. But someone calculating multiplication tables and the strategies of the art of war. She still treats me just as she always has, with a detached demeanor. But I feel like a powder keg is hidden beneath this indifference. A powder keg that could blow up the entire capital at any moment. Peaceful days didn't last for long. That night, I was having a small gathering outside the palace with some friends from the Imperial Academy. I had a few too many drinks, and my head was feeling a bit fuzzy. By the time I returned to the Eastern Palace, it was nearly 9 at night. My steps were unsteady, and my mind was a muddled mess. My personal eunuch Xiao Anzi was supporting me as we walked toward the sleeping quarters. While passing the rockery in the garden, I suddenly heard the sound of stifled sobbing. Who is crying over there? Your Highness, it's late. You should head in and rest. What is your name? Why are you crying here? Your servant, your servant. Kaiwei pays her respects to His Highness the Crown Prince. Get up. If you have some grievance, feel free to tell me about it. Your servant has such a bitter life. My family suffered a tragedy, which is why I entered the palace. Today, I accidentally broke the jade pendant gifted to me by the supervisor, and I am to be severely punished. It's just a jade pendant. It is no big deal. I'll just tell the supervisor and that will be the end of it. Stop crying. Your Highness the Crown Prince, what are you doing? His Highness the Crown Prince he is forcing himself upon a palace maid. It is over. It is a trap. Quickly go report this to the Crown Princess. Just as I found myself unable to explain and prepared to throw caution to the wind, Liu Shuyi arrived. She was walking in a hurry, brisk and windswept. She had arrived quite quickly. Her hair was still a bit loose, clearly just woken from her sleep. The dim light shone upon her face, making it hard to discern her expression. I could not make out her expression or mood at that moment. She walked up to me. She glanced at Kaiwei on the ground, then turned her gaze to me as I stood there at a loss. And then, she asked me a strange question. Is her scent strong? I'm asking you since you were just so close to her. Did you smell a fragrance? Yes, it is very strong. The scent is so overpowering it makes one dizzy. Nanny, you say you saw the Crown Prince misconducting himself with her with your own eyes. It is the absolute truth. This old servant saw it with my own eyes. There is not a word of falsehood. Then how far were you from them at the time? We were just right under that crabapple tree. Oh. At that distance. I assume you couldn't hear what they were saying. We couldn't hear them, but this old servant could see them clearly. Good. Go and bring Kaiwei over to see me. It seems, Nanny, that you not only have sharp eyes, but also a sharp nose. Crown Princess, what do you mean by that? I mean that I was just standing right next to Kaiwei, and I could barely smell the fragrance on her. Yet you, standing over a dozen paces away, were able to be lured here by this scent, and happened to stumble upon this. Good deed. This suggests you weren't drawn here by crying. Nor did you just happen to be passing by. You followed the scent here on purpose. This is a Western region spice called butterfly lure incense, isn't it? It is colorless and odorless. People cannot smell it. But there is a specific medicinal powder. If one comes into contact with even a little, one can detect the scent of the butterfly lure within 100 paces. You have that very powder on you, don't you? The head nanny's face turned completely white in an instant. She never dreamed in her wildest imagination that Liu Shuyi would know about this spice and its use. Liu Shuyi looked at her terrified expression, her tone completely devoid of emotion. This spice has another characteristic. It makes people's minds foggy and their limbs weak. Though the effect only lasts for 1 hour. Let's do the math. The Crown Prince was out at a banquet drinking, returning to the Eastern Palace just as the drug took effect. You calculated it perfectly, that he was drunk and lightheaded. Add the effect of the drug, and it would be so easy for him to fall into your carefully laid trap. You even banked on the fact that I would be so blinded by rage that I would lose my mind and make a huge scene out of this. It is just a shame you miscalculated one thing. I am not one to believe that seeing is believing. I only believe in logic. She turned her head, her gaze sweeping over the group, now terrified. "Will you confess it yourselves now? Or shall I summon the imperial physicians to interrogate you one by one?" The head matron and the others she brought with her all fell to their knees in unison. Liu Shuyi didn't even bother to look at them again. She couldn't have cared less. She grabbed my wrist and turned to walk out of the hall. Her palm was ice cold, but her grip was firm. I was dragged along by her, like a schoolboy who had made a mistake, not daring to say a word, following obediently behind her. Back in the bedchamber, she let go of my wrist and poured herself a glass of water. I stood where I was, not knowing what to do with my hands or feet. "Shuyi, You what? You want to say you didn't touch her? I know. You only smell of alcohol and the grease from the market. There is no scent of a woman on you. Besides, you're not that stupid." With that, she took her water glass and went into the inner room alone. I stood alone in the empty outer hall, feeling a myriad of mixed emotions. She didn't scold me, didn't interrogate me. She didn't even give me a cold look. She simply used a kind of near-cold logic to pull me out of a dead end, and then told me that because I didn't smell of anything I shouldn't, everything was fine. I don't know whether to feel relieved or saddened. My crown princess, she is not my wife. She is my final and my strongest firewall. The caught in the act incident ended with the noble consort grounding me for a month for failing to discipline my staff. That maid, Kaiwei, and the head matron were beaten to death. I know, this was my father giving Liu Shuyi an explanation, and also for the untarnished Liu family behind her. A definitive response. He needs a stable eastern palace, and will not tolerate the slightest disturbance. And Liu Shuyi proved that she has the ability to maintain that stability, even if she has to defend it in the most direct and bloody way. After this incident, my second imperial brother completely calmed down. Perhaps he was scared off by this lesson, and didn't dare to act rashly again. Or perhaps he changed his strategy to wait for his moment in the shadows. Regardless, I enjoyed a long period of peace and quiet. My biggest daily annoyance was the morning court session, and whether I should fake being ill to skip it. Liu Shuyi was still the same as before, unchanged. All day long she was either reading books or going over the ledgers. Under her management, the eastern palaces became a precisely running machine. Everyone performed their duties, not daring to be the slightest bit slack, because they all knew that this crown princess had no tolerance for imperfection. Any tiny mistake would never escape her eyes. Until 1 month later, when Liu Shuyi fell ill without warning. That morning, I got up to prepare for court and saw her still lying in bed. Her face was pale, her lips devoid of a hint of color, looking exceptionally haggard. I reached out to touch her forehead. The temperature was frighteningly hot. I panicked instantly, my heart in total disarray. In all my years, I had never seen her so fragile and helpless. I hurriedly ordered someone to summon the imperial physician. Physician Li, head of the Imperial Medical Bureau, rushed to the Eastern Palace himself to check her pulse and diagnose her. After a long and arduous ordeal, "Your Highness, the crown princess has been poisoned." "What poison? Is it serious? Can it be cured?" "It is a rare chronic poison. It is called tendon softening powder. It is colorless and tasteless, making it impossible to detect in food. Long-term consumption leaves one physically weak and mentally withered, eventually leading to total exhaustion of vitality with no hope of recovery. The princess has not been poisoned for long, and it was discovered just in time. I can prescribe medicine to slowly restore her health." But what? "It is just that as long as the poisoner remains free, the princess will always be in danger. It must be those persistent wretches who refuse to let things be. Guards, starting from this moment, investigate everyone who serves in the Eastern Palace, especially the kitchen staff, who are our top priority. It is clearly my failure to look after her." I kept watch by her bedside, looking at her pale and haggard face, my heart feeling a fierce, consuming rage for the first time. I used to think these court struggles were incredibly tedious, wanting only to stay far away and not be caught up in them in the slightest. But now they have dared to lay their hands on Liu Shuyi. They want to kill her, to eliminate this thorn in their side. I cannot allow that. She cannot just lose her life like this without a reason. I've been investigating for 2 days. I've turned the entire Eastern Palace upside down, yet I haven't found a single lead. leave. Everyone's testimony is flawless. Not a single crack can be found. The ingredients in the kitchen were checked repeatedly. Still, nothing out of the ordinary was discovered. The person behind this poisoning is hidden extremely well. They haven't left a single trace behind. Liu Shuyi's condition keeps fluctuating. Her state is never stable. Sometimes she is a little more alert and can manage to sip a few mouthfuls of porridge. Other times she drifts into a constant sleep, unable to even open her eyes. I'm so anxious that fever blisters have broken out on my lips. Yet, I am completely powerless. This evening, I returned to the bedchamber after reviewing some trivial memorials. I saw that Liu Shuyi was awake, propped up against the headboard, breathing shallowly. She still looks incredibly weak, her complexion deathly pale, but her eyes have regained a glimmer of their former clarity. Your Highness. I quickly walked over to her and poured her a cup of warm water. How are you feeling? Are you feeling any better at all? How goes the investigation? Have you found any clues? No clues, as I expected. Since the culprit dared to strike within the Eastern Palace, they certainly wouldn't leave such obvious trails. Do you have anyone you suspect? Your Highness, who do you think wishes for my death the most? Without evidence, speculation is useless. Your Highness. At tomorrow's morning court, please request leave for me from His Majesty. The next day at court, I addressed the gathered officials, stating that the crown princess was ill and required rest. My mother's expression darkened on the spot, looking quite displeased. My father, however, said nothing, only instructing the imperial physician's office to provide proper care. Over the next few days, Liu Shuyi grew even sicker. She even started coughing up blood at times, looking exceptionally frail. Imperial physicians came and went daily, and treatments never ceased. Bowl after bowl of medicine was forced down, yet she showed no signs of improvement. Rumors gradually began to spread through the palace, growing ever more rampant. People whispered that the crown princess wouldn't last the winter, and that the Liu family had lost their influence, meaning the Eastern Palace would soon have a new mistress. Hearing these words, I felt both angry and anxious, but in front of Liu Shuyi, I still had to act as if nothing was wrong. That day my mother, Empress Guo, arrived at the Eastern Palace with a large entourage, marching in with an imposing air, claiming it was to visit the sick. But the spectacle looked more like they were there to ransack the place. Shuyi has been sick for so long without getting better, and I am deeply worried, child. Could it be that the servants in the Eastern Palace are not serving you with enough care? Mother, you worry too much. The physician said I require quiet rest. Quiet rest, hemp. I suspect there are people who don't want her to recover. Poor child. How did you end up so ill? Don't worry, Mother will surely see justice done for you and ferret out the wretch who poisoned you. Thank you for your concern, Mother. You and I are daughter-in-law and mother-in-law. There is no need for such formalities. I hear that this maid, Shunhei, by your side, is the one you brought from your maiden home, and that she is most attentive. She has always been responsible for your meals as well. Why not let her accompany me back to the Central Palace? I shall question her personally, which will help clear your name of suspicion all the sooner. Here it is. The fox's tail finally shows itself. After beating around the bush for so long, she was targeting Chunhei all along. Once they take Shunhei away, they will use torture to force a confession, pinning the crime of poisoning her mistress on the maid. Even if Liu Shuyi survives, she will be completely ruined. Just as I was about to speak up to stop this scheme, Liu Shuyi, lying on the bed, suddenly grabbed my hand. Her hand was freezing, but her grip was firm. She gave me a gentle shake of her head. As my mother watched Liu Shuyi, who looked to be on the verge of death, a flash of barely noticeable triumph crossed her eyes. What do you think, Shuyi? This is for your own good after all. I was burning with anxiety inside, but Liu Shuyi wouldn't let go of me. What could she possibly mean by this? I was filled with doubts. Chunhei was already terrified, kneeling on the floor and bowing incessantly. Please, Empress, spare me. I didn't do it. I have always been loyal to the crown princess, and I would never dream of betrayal. Chunhei, you might as well go with the Empress. I trust that you are innocent. Guards, take Chunhei away. My lady, please, save me. My mother left the Eastern Palace feeling quite satisfied. I rushed to the bedside, demanding an answer, both angry and anxious. By handing Chunhei over, you've essentially given away your own life. Close the door. Wait, you're not sick. I am sick, but not as badly as it seems. The poisoning is real. But the blood coughing and comas were just an act. Why? What exactly are you trying to do? Fishing. I'm fishing. You're risking your life and Shunhei is to go fishing. If I don't do this, how could the fish ever take the bait? The person behind the poison is hiding in the shadows. If I only showed minor symptoms, they would just keep waiting and watching. I had to look like I was dying, so they would think the time was right, and jump out to strike the final blow, sending Shunhei away. Is just like dangling the bait right in front of the fish's mouth. Do you really think the Empress cares whether Shunhei is the culprit? No, all she wants is a result. A result she can use to have me deposed and to strike at you. She will rush to make Shunhei confess as quickly as possible, and then take that ironclad evidence to the emperor. You mean to say? Exactly. I am waiting for her to take that evidence to the emperor. Then what about Shunhei? They will force a confession out of her. I have already made arrangements. The moment Shunhei is taken away, 2 common eunuchs from the Eastern Palace will get into a fight over gambling and be sent to the Imperial Household Department's disciplinary bureau. There is a former student of my father's working there, who is now the superintendent. Those 2 eunuchs will be locked in the same cell as the eunuchs guarding Shunhei. They will accidentally overhear the entire interrogation. But even with witnesses, the Empress could still deny it. She certainly can deny it. But what about the physical evidence? She won't be able to shake that off. Physical evidence, that bowl of poison. How is that possible? Wasn't that poison poured out long ago? The ones I drank afterward were poured out. The bowl that actually contained the poison I kept. The poison I was given was a muscle relaxant. But this poison has a fatal flaw. It requires jade dragon grass as an agent to take effect. And in the entire palace, that grass is found in only one place. Where? The Cunning Palace. Are you not afraid this will backfire? That is why this game requires one final crucial step. One that you, Your Highness the Crown Prince, must take yourself. Me? Yes, tomorrow morning. You are not going to the Emperor, nor to the Disciplinary Bureau. You are going to Cunning Palace to see the Empress. To do what? To beg for mercy. You want me to kneel and beg for Shunhei? Have you lost your mind? Oh, right, you're currently ill. But what would I be pleading for? Wouldn't that just confirm my guilt? My mother would be delighted to have me tied up on the spot, then thrown in with Shunhei to face judgment together. Are you sure? I am sure. And not only must you plead, but you must plead with heartfelt sincerity. Plead until you seem completely distraught, like a desperate crown prince on the verge of being deposed. Why? Because you need to make her believe that she has won. Only when a person feels that victory is within their grasp will they lower their guard and reveal their greatest vulnerability. If you go to beg her, what will she think? She'll think I'm a fool. She'll think I'm scared. She'll think Liu Shuyi is finished. And the only thing left is for a good-for-nothing like me to crawl and beg, right? The more she thinks that, the more anxious she'll be to seal Shunhei's fate. She might even oversee the interrogation herself, pushing it through to avoid any complications. And I'll be waiting for her to make her move. No way, I am the crown prince of this dynasty. I would never humiliate myself by begging like that. I wish to see the Empress. Her Majesty is currently meditating and is not receiving visitors. Mother, please show mercy. Your son has something to say. Cheng'an, what are you doing? Have you no sense of propriety? Mother, I beg of you. Shunhei is innocent. She is Shuyi's most trusted confidante. How could she possibly poison her? You are a crown prince, kneeling here for a mere servant. If word of this gets out, what will become of the imperial family's dignity? I don't care about dignity. Shuyi is on the verge of death. Now, even the last person she trusts is about to be wrongly executed. Mother, I beg you for my sake, spare her. You silly boy, why go to such lengths? Very well, since I am your mother. Get up and speak. Cheng'an, tell me. What exactly is going on? Mother Shuyi, I fear she is dying. The imperial physician said it is only a matter of days. Before she goes, her only concern is Chunhei. She begged me to save her. I was truly at my wit's end, so I came to beg you. She has fallen so ill. The poor girl. Rest assured, as for Chunhei's case, I will look into it myself. She shall not be wronged. From now on, the East Palace is closed to all visitors. Tell everyone my condition has worsened. Also, hang that parrot by the courtyard gate. Why hang it there? It talks too much. The Crown Princess has been arrested. The Crown Princess has been arrested. By imperial decree, the Crown Princess Lady Liu is summoned to the Golden Throne Hall immediately for a confrontation. Let's go. Are you ready? Do you think a cat, before pouncing on a mouse, asks itself if it is ready? Liu Shuyi, you poisonous woman. You actually dare to show your face here. Your Majesty, you must seek justice for me. This venomous woman, not only did she poison herself to stage a bitter scheme, but she also turned around to frame me. If it hadn't been discovered in time, my Kuning Palace would have turned into a cold, desolate prison. Lady Liu, what do you have to say for yourself? Does it hurt? Father Cheng'an has nothing to say. I only wish to show you a few things. Have you listened to a few people and hear a few words? Present them. This was found under the Crown Princess's bed. She drank it herself and then tried to frame me. The Empress is right. This bowl of medicine is indeed tainted. Your Majesty, this is the interrogation record that I heard with my own ears at the Ministry of Justice. Empress, how you coerced and bribed Nanny Zhang and Imperial Physician Li, conspiring to frame Chunhei for the poisoning, and how you threatened the lives of Chunhei's family to force her confession. Everything is recorded here in detail. Nonsense. You two gamblers have lost your minds, daring to slander me in the Great Hall. Whether it is slander or not, bring in Nanny Zhang and Imperial Physician Li, and we shall see. We have seen the human witnesses. Now, let us move on to the physical evidence. Your Majesty, Empress, esteemed officials. Everyone knows that poison is invisible, but the ingredients used to concoct it are not. The key ingredient for the muscle-relaxing powder is called jade dragon grass. This grass thrives in the cold, and its leaves have extremely fine white fuzz on the back. When crushed for medicine, this fuzz sheds, mixing with the dregs, and floats on the surface of the water. When burned, it emits the stench of charred feathers. This proves nothing. This only proves the medicine was poisonous. It only proves the medicine contained poison. But this jade dragon grass, in the entire imperial palace, is grown only in the greenhouse behind the Palace of Earthly Tranquility. Because this grass fears the cold, it is extremely difficult to cultivate. It was imported by the Empress herself from the western regions to help manage His Majesty's health. Palace records and the Imperial Medical Archive have clear documentation of this. Outside of the Palace of Earthly Tranquility, there is not another plant in the entire world. Empress Chengxi would like to ask you, How was I able to enter your heavily guarded greenhouse at the palace of earthly tranquility without anyone knowing and obtain the only necessary ingredient for this poison? The consort Guo has acted without propriety, lacking the virtue required for her position. Effective immediately, you are to relocate to the Chengqing Palace. Reflect on your behavior in silence. You are not to leave without a summons. The second prince is arrogant and unruly, and unfit for responsibility. He is to leave immediately for the imperial mausoleum to keep watch over his grandmother's tomb for 3 years. The crown princess Lady Liu is wise and virtuous, and handles matters with decorum. Reward her with 1,000 taels of gold and 100 rolls of brocade. As for the Eastern Palace, all matters within the Eastern Palace hereafter, regardless of how small, are to be decided solely by the crown princess. No one is permitted to interfere. I, the crown prince, have become nothing more than a figurehead. My daily job is just to keep Liu Shuyi company. In the study, she reads through ledgers and handles official business, while I read picture books to pass the time. There is an issue with this year's tax revenue from the Ministry of Revenue. What do you think? Whatever you think should be done, consider it done. By the next day, several officials from the Ministry of Revenue would be dragged out and beheaded for corruption and graft. I finally figured out the secret behind it all. That imperial decree from my father wasn't just giving my wife control over the Eastern Palace. It was giving her control over the state affairs of all Daxia. I am merely the mascot she pushes to the forefront, but I actually quite like this new job. It is relaxed and carefree, with no pressure at all, and it is very safe. Even if the sky were to fall, Liu Shuyi would be the one to hold it up. I just need to focus on eating and drinking well, and maintain the plump physique expected of a mascot. A year passed in this blissful existence. After a year, my father decided that I, the crown prince, couldn't just have a capable wife. I also needed to build my own power base, so he made an important decision. He sent me and Liu Shuyi a helping hand. This man's name is Liu Xian, the top-ranking scholar of the new imperial examinations, and a compiler in the Hanlin Academy. He is the young official my father values most. It is said that he is incredibly talented, with a photographic memory, and is particularly adept at handling economic and livelihood affairs. Your humble servant, Liu Xian, greets the crown prince. May your highness be blessed with virtue, and may your benevolence reach all the people. You are the foundation of our great Sha. All right, all right. In the Eastern Palace, skip these empty formalities and just be casual. Your Highness is truly as approachable as the legends say. You stand on no ceremony. I admire that, Your Highness. Crown Princess. These are the findings from my investigations over the last few days. Regarding fields, taxes, and water conservancy around the capital, I have discovered that several areas show major discrepancies with the Ministry of Revenue's records. I suspect that local officials are concealing farmland to evade taxes. What are you eating? A bowl. A bowl of fine rice porridge and 2 meat buns. Oh. Which shop did you buy them from? The Wang's Bun Shop at the East Street corner. Here is your first assignment. Go and get to the bottom of this matter. I want results within 3 days. Your Highness, why should I handle such a triviality? Triviality, in your eyes, is the theft of the national treasury the only thing that matters? While the accounts of a bun shop are trivial, Magistrate Liu, water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. This boat is the realm itself. This water is the common people. Go. Are you really sending him to investigate a bun shop? What else? If I don't let him roll in the mud in the fields, he will always be a scholar from the Imperial Academy floating in the clouds. He talks a great game about principles, but he is a disaster when it comes to real work. People like him have sharp minds, but their hands are dirty. They need to be scrubbed clean before they can be of use. Go back to investigating. Yes, Your Majesty. I have discovered that this is a colossal web of corruption. This web is deeply intertwined, entangling many different factions. The scale reaches from the Ministry of Works to the Ministry of Revenue, and it even connects to the generals on the frontier. Your Majesty, I spent months of painstaking effort investigating this. I know that is why I must burn it. Why? Because the timing is not yet right. This web is too vast, and far too many people are involved. If we move against them now, the slightest misstep, and the foundations of our great Shao will be shaken. Then was all my hard work over these past months in vain? Not in vain. The entire process of your investigation is the greatest gain. You are currently reading a much more difficult book, The Ways of the World. Liu Shuyi, I kept you here, not to turn you into a cold official who only knows how to investigate cases. I want you to see the darkness of this world. Yet keep your heart pointed toward the light. Wait until the day when we have a newer, stronger, and cleaner web that can replace this old one. Then it will not be too late to cast the net. Redirect the water over here, and then this canal. Old Wang, what have you prepared for dinner tonight? Your Highness, we have fresh fat crabs today. Shall I prepare steamed crab in orange? Very well, let us have the steamed crab in orange. Cheng'an, the imperial court has no more reinforcements. The northern border will fall. The fall of the north is imminent. Once the northern barbarians' cavalry moves south, the capital will be in danger. I have no choice but to die in service to the country to atone for my failures. Shu has also met with disaster. The north cannot hold. It is those parasites, these traitors, for their own selfish desires, have disregarded the fate of our nation. How is this any different from selling out the country? It is useless to say these things now. It is currently the end of September. Moving grain and troops takes at least a month. By the time reinforcements reach the north, the war will be long over by then. The only solution is for Third Brother to resolve the crisis on the spot. Resolve it on the spot. If he had a way, why would he write a letter in blood for help? He has no money, no food, and no winter gear right now. He has absolutely no options left. Money, grain, and clothing. What is there no shortage of in the Northern Territory? Horses and furs. The northern barbarians send massive amounts of war horses and livestock skins as tribute every year. They're all stockpiled in the frontier government warehouses, but he can't touch those. Because they are tribute. By law, they must be turned over to the imperial treasury. But what if you, Your Highness, the Crown Prince, had a secret edict? A secret edict authorizing him to act first and report later regarding the tribute. No. That's too risky. If Father finds out, we'll both lose our heads. He won't find out. This edict won't pass through anyone else's hands. You will deliver it yourself. I go to the Northern Territory. Yes, you are the Crown Prince. Going yourself shows the imperial courts resolve to stand firm. The secret edict gives Third Brother the power to make decisions on the fly. He can exchange the tribute for grain and winter clothes from Western merchants. He could even recruit troops on the spot, promising the soldiers heavy rewards. This is called finding life in the midst of death. But there are no buts. Fine, I will go to the Northern Territory. I will deliver this order. Cheng'an, you. Why are you here? Third Brother, Father says. You may sell the tribute to handle the crisis. Good, good. With this, the Northern Territory can be saved. Come on, since when has this prince ever seen a scene like this? If I get scared out of my wits now, how will I ever make it in the Eastern Palace? I am the crown prince, the heir apparent, the future emperor. For the sake of the people, so that I can go back to being an idle crown prince. Reporting to your majesty, a great victory in the north. Good, good, ha ha ha. My son is truly valiant. However, I am quite curious. Where Chengwu got the nerve to use the imperial tribute from the government storehouse? Who gave him the authority to dare to act on his own authority? Reporting to your majesty, it was your daughter-in-law. It was I who instructed His Highness the Crown Prince to take them. By imperial decree. By imperial decree. The Crown Princess has the right to manage all property of the East Palace. Once those tributes enter the treasury, 30% is allocated for the East Palace's expenses. It is just that the war was urgent, and there was no time to process the relevant paperwork. Your daughter-in-law simply had the third prince withdraw those funds in advance. A fine advance withdrawal indeed. The Crown Princess manages finances with great skill. Such talent should be rewarded. As for those useless idiots in the Ministry of War and the Ministry of Revenue, drag them away, confiscate their property, and behead them. You've lost weight. Let's go. Chef Wang has warmed some yellow wine for you and prepared 8 treasure duck. What? Shouldn't you praise me first? Praise you for what? This time, not only did I deliver the letter to my second brother in time, but I also went onto the battlefield to fight. In any case, this crown prince is the hero of the hour, right? Indeed, in that case, I shall recommend to father that you manage the East Palace. No, no, no. I'd rather remain an idle crown prince. I won't fight you for the East Palace.